Yeah, it's good to get that thing off your face. All righty. Yeah, so I'll just probably give an update on what's going up our way. I suppose you probably all know anyway, but yeah, it was good on Friday night. We had a few new faces, which is good. I think I had a chat with Ryan on the way home. We had a young fella from Mount Pleasant who came, and he's a Seventh-day Adventist, brought up in that way with his family, and yeah, it was just nice to see a young 19-year-old who's pretty excited about Jesus, come and share his testimony and just quite open to talk about the Lord, which is good to see in this day and age, So it's sort of what we've been praying for, is just that the Lord will bring them in, that the locals and anybody who really wants to can come, and just so that we can have a place where we can share the word and have some fellowship, and that's what it's all about. So that's been happening. It's been really good. But yeah, so what was it? Last night I was just sort of thinking, Lord, I don't really have anything on my mind to sort of speak of today. And I always like to pray and just say, Lord, this is obviously what you want to say, not me, And yeah, there's just this big download happened last night. So if we'd all like to open up to Isaiah 36, just a bit of a sort of more of a study, I would say, to begin with, just to sort of explain to you what I want to sort of portray today. Start in verse 36. And basically, this is the story of King Hezekiah. Obviously, we know that King Hezekiah was favorable in the eyes of the Lord. And that is because he was obedient to what the Lord asked of him. And the story of Hezekiah is actually in a few places in the Bible, which I didn't know, but it was sort of mainly in Kings. But you've got Second Kings, you've got Second Chronicles, you've got Isaiah, because obviously Isaiah was the prophet at the time that was speaking to the king and sort of relaying God's messages to the king. It's just basically we pick it up in verse 36. So I think at this he became king when he was 25 years old, and basically went through a period of time. He was the king of Judah. So you had Israel and Judah, and they were separated and split apart, and there was a lot of division there amongst the nation of Israel. And so Hezekiah actually brought them together, not politically, but just because he put God first. And that's what sort of really was, I suppose, his legacy, is that he put God first. So we'll start in verse 36. And I'm just going to read out the King James, but I always go because I've got the Amplified Bible as well. I just like to sort of check up on things. So if there's a few times I might just jump over. Now it came to pass in the 14th year. Are we all there? Yeah. Isaiah 36. Verse 1. Sorry. Yeah, verse 1. Whoa. No, all good. Just yell at me if I'm on another planet. Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh, from Lachish to Jerusalem unto King Hezekiah with a great army. And he stood by the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the Fuller's field. Then came forth unto him Eliakim, Hilkiah's son, which was over the house, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, Asaph's son, the recorder. And Rabshakeh said unto them, Say ye now to Hezekiah, Thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, what confidence is this wherein thou trustest? So this Rabshakeh character is basically the military envoy from the the Assyrians. So the king of Assyria, Sennacherib was his name. He was actually younger than Hezekiah at the time. He was quite young as well. I don't know what age Hezekiah would have been, but he would have been probably in his, mid-30s at this time. And so, Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, was basically on this campaign where he was taken over, like cities all around Israel. And basically he'd come up to Judah, which had been fortified. So King Hezekiah, up till now, had been rebuilding all the walls of the city. And so, he built a conduit underneath the, basically built a tunnel for the water to come in. So he'd really upgraded the facilities there. And so he was quite in a defensive position, and he was well sort of prepared for not battle, but he was prepared to take on the enemy. Even though, they weren't as well off and as big as the Assyrians were much more capable as a military force. But basically, Sennacherib sent out this Rabshakeh to basically say, look, we're going to come and take siege of you guys, and this is our conditions, right? And so his first question that this Rabshakeh asks is, what confidence is this wherein thou trusteth? And in verse 5, and I sayest thou, but they that are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on whom dost thou trust? Thou that rebellest against me. So he sort of presents these two questions. In the Amplified, it says, what reason for confidence is in which you trust? So what's giving you the confidence to stand against us, basically? Because the Assyrians were a big empire, and they were taken over. And basically Judah was this little pocket. Israel had sort of been scattered at the time, and Judah was this pocket that was standing firm because it was fortified behind the walls. And so he's basically saying, what gives you the guts to stand up to us? And in whom do you put your trust? And in verse 6, lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to all that trust in him. So there was allegiances with Egypt as well that at the time Hezekiah did have. So he was basically saying, well, Egypt's not going to come out and help you, mate. We're onto that. But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and said to Judah and to Jerusalem, ye shall worship before this altar? Now therefore give pledges, I pray thee, to my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give thee 2,000 horses, if thou be able on thy part to set riders upon them. How then wilt thou turn away from the face of one captain at least of my master's servants, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? So he's basically saying, do you really trust in God? To take away, if you actually agree to our agreement, I will give you 2,000 horsemen, horses, so he's trying to drum up a deal here, to basically make Judah, the king, give in to their requests and come underneath Assyria. And it goes on in verse 10. And am I now come up without the Lord against this land to destroy it? The Lord said unto me, go up against this land and destroy it. So now he's claiming that the Lord's spoken to him, and he's actually coming in authority of the Lord. So then said Eliakim and Shebna and Joah unto Rabshakeh, speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in Syrian language, for we understand it, and speak not to us in the Jewish language in the ears of the people that are on the wall. He's basically saying, look, mate, can you just tone it down here? Can you speak in Syrian, because we can understand Syrian. We don't want the other guys on the walls to hear what you got to say, because this would potentially cause division. Do you know what I mean? So this guy's coming into their land, he's talking their language, and he's announcing that, look, if you guys come to these terms, look, we'll give you horsemen, where's your confidence? You don't have to, believe in God, because after he says, we'll kick on. But Rabshakeh said, hath my master sent me to thy master to speak these words? Hath he not sent me to the men that sit and drink, that sit upon the wall, they that may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you? Then, so basically saying, I've been sent here to tell everybody. I'm not just going to tell you. I'm here to tell everybody this. This message is for everyone. Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice, and in the Jews' language, and said, Hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus saith the king, Let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, The Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, Make an agreement with me, and make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me, and eat ye every one of his vine and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one of his waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, The Lord will deliver us. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Aphrad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? And have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who are they amongst all the gods of these lands, that they shall deliver their land out of my hand? That the Lord should deliver Jerusalem even out of my hand. But they held their peace, and answered him not a word. The king's command was saying, Answer him not. So basically, he's come in and he's just made all these, he said, look, if you come, if you do what we ask, we'll give you water, we'll give you horsemen, we'll give you, we'll treat you fairly, we'll take you into our own land. And so he's come and he's attacking them he's deceiving them on a number of levels. He's not only going against the word of God, he's not only, offering them gifts and presents as a bribe, but he's also basically saying, don't even listen to your king, don't even listen to your Lord, because at the end of the day, we've taken over cities who've believed in all these other gods, and we still conquered them. We still overcame them. So why are you so different, And so they didn't answer him a word. Then came Eliam, the son of Hilkiah, that was over the household, and Shedna, the scribe of Joel, the son of Asphad, the recorder, to Hezekiah, where their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rabshakeh. So here we have a situation where basically you've got this attacking army, and this is, by the way, in the background, these guys were set for war. They weren't just coming on horseback to have a conversation and a chat. These guys were ready to fight, So in verse 37, and it came to pass when Hezekiah had heard it, he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household of Shebna the tribe, and the elders of the priests, covered with their sackcloth, unto Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. So he sent him, he said, Go to Isaiah the prophet and ask him what we should do. Because Isaiah, remember, he was back in those days, nobody had the Holy Spirit, only the prophet was the one who was, in direct contact with the Lord. So send him to Isaiah, he'll tell us what to do. And they said unto him, Thus said Hezekiah, this day, a day of trouble and of rebuke and of blasphemy. For the children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. It may be of the Lord thy God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria his master sent to reproach the living God, and will prove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up the prayer for the remnant that is left. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said unto them, Thus saith ye unto your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words thou hast heard, wherewith the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor and return to his lone land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. So basically he's saying, don't be afraid. Number one, don't be afraid. What he's saying, what this guy Rabshakeh has come and told you is actually blasphemy. He's blaspheming my name, and this is what's going to come upon him. I'm going to blast him. He will hear a rumor and return to his own land. and he will actually die by falling on his own sword in his own name. So he's going to go. I'm going to make it, and I'm going to protect you. And so this is what happened. So Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria warring against Libnah, for he had heard that he was departed from Lachish. So this is what happened. The king of Assyria heard that there was a rumor. He listened and he trusted the rumor. He went and he started warring somewhere else. He took the whole army and left the lands of Judah. And he heard say concerning Tirnah, king of Ethiopia, he is come forth to make war with thee. And when he heard it, he sent messages to Hezekiah, saying, thus shall ye speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, let not thy God, in whom thou trustest, deceive thee, saying, Jerusalem should not be given unto the hand of the king of Syria. So the army leaves. He's gone off to fight these other wars, which is as the Lord had said through Isaiah. But he still sends messengers back and still a second time tells Hezekiah, don't listen to your God because I'm coming back to get you. Which is like just ridiculous. Like this guy's got, he's got courage to say that, you know. And so you imagine that being Hezekiah and the people, they must be thinking, man, he's got boldness, this guy. Not only is he come here making all these demands, but he thinks that, you know, like the Lord is behind him. The Lord's told him to come and attack us and take over, and he's going to win. So it would be very, like, you know, you'd think as being in their shoes that they would be quite doubtful, you know, and they could easily lose faith. Have the gods of the nations delivered them with their fathers and destroyed as Gozan? So we'll just, where is it? In 14. And Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And Hezekiah went up to the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed unto the Lord, saying, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, that dwelleth between the cherubims, thou art the God, even thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth, thou hast made the earth, heaven and the earth. Incline thy ear, O Lord, and open thine eyes, and see and hear all the words of Sennacherib, or the king Sennacherib, which hath sent to thee to reproach the living God. Of a truth, Lord, the kings of Assyria have laid waste to all the nations of the countries. It is true, Lord. These guys have taken over all these other cities and towns. Like, this guy's not joking, you know, and have cast down their gods into the fire, for they were no gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore they have destroyed them. Now, therefore, O Lord our God, save us from this hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art the Lord, and even thou only. Then Isaiah, the son of Amos, came down to Hezekiah, saying, thus saith the Lord God of Isaiah, whereas thou hast prayed against Sennacherib, king of Assyria. So basically here again, Isaiah comes a second time, look, God's heard your prayer, and this is the Lord's answer. This is the word of the Lord which is spoken against him. The virgin, the daughter of Zion, have despised thee and laughed thee to scorn, and have taken Jerusalem and shaken her head, whom thou hast reproached and blasphemed against him. So he's basically saying this whole thing, and I won't read the whole thing, but he just says that this Sennacherib, he is going to fall. This king Sennacherib, the Assyrian king. Now we'll pick it back up. In verse 32, and for out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and they shall escape out of the mountain Zion. Therefore, thus saith the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come unto the city, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with shields or cast a blank against it. So he's basically prophesying, look, this guy is not even going to shoot an arrow at you guys. And this is what I've got to say. For I will defend the city, number 35, for I will defend this city to save it from my own sake and for my servant David's sake. Then the angel of the Lord went forth and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. That's 185,000. And when they rose early in the morning, behold, there were dead corpses everywhere. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt at Nineveh. And it came to pass, as he was worshipping in his own house of Nishroth his god, that Adramelech and Shemaz his sons smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia. So exactly what the Lord decreed happened. The Assyrian king got distracted. He started fighting another battle. He left the lands. And then on top of that, the angel of the Lord sent, God sent the angel of the Lord and destroyed 185,000 of the soldiers of the Assyrians. So that made them turn around and go home. And then when they got home, the king's own sons killed him. And so this is just like, it's a pretty intense story. And I've sort of looked at it from the historic perspective as well, and it all lines up. They found documents and archaeological artifacts that fully support what happened. Even from the Assyrians' point of view, they found a document saying, that they got beaten, that, and for the Assyrians, apparently, nobody likes to admit that they got beaten, especially as a king and as a commander. He always wanted to say, but this particular case, there's records showing that, they admitted that they got totally destroyed, and so, King Hezekiah is in this place where he's obeyed and the Lord's protected him. Now, I like to, I'm just trying to, think, how does that relate to us? How does this story relate to us, And, I just think we're in a time now where it's very uncertain. There is attacks on us from all different angles and coming from all different places. Whether it's what we believe, whether it's our health, whether it's the choices we make with our bodies, whether it's how, everything, basically everything. And we are sort of in this position where we, as Christians, do we stand up for the truth? Do we sort of, sit back and just sort of think, no, God's got this under control? Do we, there's so many things going on. And I've been talking to people and there's a lot of confusion out there. And and it's fair enough. Like, people don't know what to do. They don't know whether they should stand up and say no, whether they should, go along with what's happening around. Because obviously the freedoms are starting to get taken away, and it's just a slippery slope, as you can see on the eastern coast, And so, in this situation, Hezekiah was kind of in the same place, He was, stuck in the city. He had protected himself, but he had this huge force coming against him that was telling him, look, we know who you are. We know what God you serve. We've conquered all the other towns and all the other cities. Your God's the same as every other God. They never stood a chance against us. Why don't you just give up? Why don't you just, do what we ask? We're going to look after you. We're going to support you. And to me, doesn't that just sound like Satan in the garden? It's the same thing. And this is the thing that straight away tells me, the first thing is, every single time Satan comes, his strategy is exactly the same. Whether it was in the garden where he told Eve, did God really say? Straight away attacked her faith in God. Did God really say? You'll not surely die. If you eat of the tree, you won't surely die. You actually become as God. You actually become greater than God. You won't even need God. So he attacks her faith. He questions her, her belief, and then he tells her God's not gonna be there for you. He doesn't care about you, and you're actually going to be greater than God. Same with Jesus and Satan. When Jesus got tempted in the desert, when he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, the first thing Satan said to him is, look, if you're really the Son of God, well, why don't you turn these rocks into bread? Straight away questioning his identity. Who are you really? Are you really who you say you are? Second, he questions God. If you are the Son of God, well, cast yourself off this mountain and the angels will come and, pick you up, because that's what it says in the Bible. So he attacks the word of God, so he attacks God himself. And then he says, if you worship me, I'll give you all these kingdoms. I'll give you all these gifts and rewards and presents. Isn't that the same thing that Rabshak was trying to do? I'll give you the horsemen and the and and I'll give you food and plenty of wine, and you come back with us and we'll have a great old time. It's the same strategy. And we got the same stuff right now. And we've got it all the time. And it's happening every day. And it's not just what's happening in the world, it happens to us on a daily occurrence. It happens up here. It's the attack of the enemy. And he gives you ideas, it's the voice of the enemy. And, we're told very clearly, you can choose to listen to the shepherd's voice or the stranger's voice. And so, we go through this on a daily occurrence, and as I grow older and as I meet more people, the constant thing that I'm, coming up against is anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, self-consciousness, and a lost identity, generally, in people. And that is because the devil has been allowed to speak. The enemy has been allowed to speak. And if we let him speak, we end up where he wants us to be, and that is down the path of destruction. And so all I want to bring home today is, are you aware of this? And as we'll soon find out, we'll keep on reading, is your house in order? Are you ready for what's coming? So we'll keep going with the story of Hezekiah in 38. So this all happened. God saved them. All good. End of story. Not really. So 38. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came unto him and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die not live. So that was a pretty rough word from Isaiah the prophet. And, Hezekiah's got this sickness that had come upon him. And, he's facing imminent death. And it's true to what's happening now. We are living in a place that is absolutely in fear of death. They don't have an option. People don't have an option out there. They don't have an answer. They don't know where to turn because they don't have any beliefs. And their end goal is death. And nobody talks about death anymore, have you noticed? Nobody talks about, it's not a popular topic because it's all about make yourself rich, make sure your superannuation's good, make sure you've got some real estate property so that when you go to retire, you've got something to lean on. Make sure your finances are in order so that when you do retire, you're all set. But you're going to leave naked, just like you entered naked. That's the reality. And so we know we have the hope, don't we? We have the answer. And this is the thing. We as the Lord's people need to show that the way we live. Because just like Hezekiah, Hezekiah, and you can look at all the kings in the Bible, all of them at some stage would have believed in God. But they only recorded, the recording of what their legacy is recorded is by their actions. It's not by their beliefs. And we live in a world where you can say all the things that you believe in, your actions can speak the opposite. And we as Christians our beliefs need to line up with our actions because our actions are our beliefs. And so, it's just interesting to see that, Hezekiah, of all the things that he went through, the only way he got through it is by obeying the word of the Lord. It wasn't his intentions that got him through. It wasn't his well-doings that got him through or his thoughts. It was his actions. He actioned upon the word of the Lord and enacted it out. And if you look at what he did, he took away all the idols and he rebuilt the temple and he did all these things, and they're actions. And we are judged according to our actions. We're not judged according to our beliefs. And this is the thing, like as the times are coming, I find people, especially Christians, are now getting pushed to a point where they have to make a decision. as to where does their allegiance really lie. And this is why I think it's just a timely time just to, and I do this regularly, is just to examine myself, where am I at? Because this could end at any moment, and like the people in Afghanistan that we hear of, like the Christians there, they're getting martyred, 100%. They're getting destroyed, and we are getting destroyed in a different sense. They necessarily won't drag us out on the street and shoot us in the head if we deny Christ. They'll take us down bit by bit. They'll remove our freedoms. They'll maybe take away our jobs. They'll, put laws against us. I don't know what's going to happen, but it'll happen, 100%. And I'm just making sure, are we ready for that as the body of Christ? Are we prepared to give it all up and stand on the truth? And that's a hard word, but it's the truth, because that's what's coming. And you can't really say it with a smile on your face because it's hard. But the thing is, that's why we do what we do. We encourage one another, we come together, we stir one another up, and we provide each other with support because the Holy Spirit is within us. And that is what binds us together and enables us to conquer and do what and fulfill the victory that was on the cross through Jesus Christ. So I just want to sort of, this point where Hezekiah basically gets sick. Isaiah comes to him and says, "You're going to die? Get your house in order." And when Hezekiah gets down and has some prayer, he says, "Lord, please, Lord, help me." And the Lord hears him and he gives him another 15 minutes. And so God is a merciful God. He wants, you hear little snippets of things that are happening around the world. Like I think Texas, like just yesterday or the day before, they abolished abortion. Like, if you go and get an abortion there right now, they will, you are open to be sued, and you can't go to a clinic. They've shut down all abortions clinics in the state of Texas. And the Democrats and all the people, they've gone off their hand, but that is what's happening. And that's when you hear stuff like that, you think, maybe there's still hope, and that's what's going to prolong this, is people. There are good people in this world that are trying to do the right thing. It's not all doom and gloom, but it's up to us as the body of Christ to provide that light, because it's the light that shines in you that the world will see. It's not going to be, people to read the book or go to church, or it's you and me, It's us walking around shining the light daily in the way that we talk, the way that we act, the way that we live our lives. That's going to cause people to change, And, I just wanted to sort of bring that about. I hope there's a few things more that I had to say, but I just thought, I was going to talk about also, the armor of God, are we, as soldiers of Christ, do we have the armor on it? We know about the armor, we know about the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit. We know about all these things, but are we wearing it? A lot of people, they know they've got it, but it's hanging on a coat hanger in the closet. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, get it on, put it on and wear it and know what you've got and be battle worthy. Like I know when I was in the army, we did PT and we did battle PT. And I remember very clearly, we had this whole bunch of bodybuilders that rocked up and joined up at the same time. Big, strong looking units, lift, whatever, bench press, really strong units. But I tell you what, you put a pack on their backs and a rifle in their hand and tell them to march 40 Ks. And they couldn't handle it because they weren't battle ready. They were fit, they were strong, but they weren't ready for battle. Whereas the young guy who looked like a hare, built like a hare, he could just keep going, outrun them, no worries, And that's what we've got to be. We've got to be battle ready, not just fit and confident in ourselves. We've got to be confident in the word, you know, and ready for action for what's coming. So I just hope that encourages you. It's a hard word, but I believe that the truth is what will set us free. And that can only be found in Jesus Christ. So I just, yeah, amen.